There is a reason Virgo never stays broken. When the world falls apart, they don't collapse, they recalibrate. You may see quiet, you may see doubt, but inside a sacred fire sharpens. Virgo doesn't just survive, they alchemize. Again and again they rise not louder but wiser. There's a secret inside their silence, a code written in their pain. And if you watch until the end, you'll see why Virgo always comes back stronger, and maybe you'll understand something about your own return. There is a wound carved into the myth of Virgo, but it is not a flaw, it is a portal. The ancients called her Astrea, the last immortal to walk the earth, when the golden age fell into darkness. She held the scales of divine order, refusing to abandon humanity until the world became too cruel to bear. And even then she didn't disappear. She ascended, becoming the constellation Virgo, not to escape, but to watch, to wait, and to remind us that purity is not perfection, but a return to essence. Virgo is not here to be flawless. Virgo is here to make things whole. This sign is not made of glittering pride or blinding ambition. It is made of sacred discipline, invisible devotion, and a relentless longing to repair what others overlook. Virgo is the humble architect of healing, not the one who boasts, but the one who kneels. They see what is broken in the world, and instead of despairing, they begin the quiet work of restoration. Their strength is not in grand displays, it is in their refusal to give up on the details. They come back stronger because they never leave the work. Virgo lives in the tension between chaos and cosmos. Their gift and their burden is the awareness that nothing is ever quite complete. They see the cracks, the misalignments, the spaces where improvement is possible. But unlike the critic who tears down, Virgo rebuilds. Their power is in their ability to detect subtle imbalances, to refine, to polish, to rearrange, until harmony is restored. And when life collapses, that impulse doesn't vanish, it deepens. The world may call it overthinking, but it is divine engineering. Virgo's mind is a sacred instrument, not chaotic, but crystalline. It is always assessing, recalibrating, seeking the thread of coherence. When Virgo breaks, they don't just feel, they analyze, they sort, they categorize. It is not to numb the pain, but to understand it, to find the code inside the collapse. Because once they locate the pattern, they can restore the system. And once they restore the system, they don't just return, they ascend. They don't come back stronger by accident. They come back because they were never here to quit. There is a divine stubbornness in Virgo, not loud, not theatrical, but eternal. It is the whisper that says, this can be better. This can be healed, even if it means working in the background, even if no one notices, even if they must carry the burden alone. Virgo is not powered by applause. They are moved by alignment. When the noise fades, they listen for the rhythm of what is real. And that's where they rise again and again. Virgo is the sign of sacred imperfection, the holy reminder that flaw is not failure, and collapse is not the end. It is recalibration. It is the point of return, the start of something truer, more refined, more honest. Virgo doesn't just come back stronger. Virgo comes back cleaner, clearer, closer to what matters. Because from the beginning they were never chasing power. They were chasing wholeness. There is a quiet divinity in the way Virgo serves, not as a subordinate, not as a martyr, but as a sacred vessel. They do not serve because they are lesser. They serve because they see. They see what others ignore, the ripple effect of a misstep, the unraveling thread behind a careless word, the deeper ache behind a simple request. In a world obsessed with dominance and display, Virgo bends low, not to submit, but to align. They know that real power is not in being seen. It is in seeing what must be done. Virgo is the cosmic servant, not to others, but to the divine pattern hidden beneath the surface of things. This is not obedience. This is priesthood. The Virgo soul carries the archetype of the temple keeper, the one who tends the sacred fire while the village sleeps. They keep watch over what is holy, even when it is unspoken, especially then. They notice the things that go unnoticed, because that's where life begins to fall apart, not in explosions, but in neglect. And Virgo is here to make sure nothing sacred is left to decay. You will find Virgo energy in the healer who works until their hands ache, in the editor who labors over every line of truth, in the caretaker who prepares a space where others feel whole again. They do it not for recognition, but because it is unbearable to them to leave something fragmented when it could be restored. This devotion is often misunderstood. In a world that equates love with grand gestures, Virgo offers love in granular ways, a restructured plan, a perfectly timed message, a meal made exactly how you like it, not because you asked, but because they remembered. They always remember. That's their magic and their ache. To serve with such precision is to carry an ache the world rarely understands. It is not easy, this path. Virgo feels the weight of inefficiency, of disarray of promises unkept. Their service is born, not from lightness, but from the burden of knowing how much could be better if only someone cared enough to fix it. So they fix it, quietly, meticulously. And in doing so, they reclaim dignity, theirs and yours. This is why Virgo comes back stronger. Because even when they fall, their first instinct is not self-pity, it is service. They ask, what still needs tending? What can I mend? That question reorients them. It gives them purpose. It puts their pain into context. And through service, they find strength. This is not a sign that waits to be rescued. This is a sign that gets up, cleans the room, rewrites the plan, and realigns the mission even while their heart is breaking. They come back stronger because their identity is not built on applause or affirmation. It is built on usefulness, on impact, on offering themselves to something greater than ego. Whether that's a person, a project, or a principle, Virgo becomes whole through what they offer, not what they receive. And in that offering, they rise. They may be underestimated, they may be overlooked, but when the storm passes and the pieces need to be picked up, Virgo is already at work, restoring what matters, one invisible act of grace at a time. To understand why Virgo always comes back stronger, we must enter the mind of Mercury, not the winged trickster of Gemini, but the silent artisan of Virgo. Here, Mercury is not a playful messenger. It is a precision instrument forged in solitude. Where Gemini flutters and explores, Virgo refines. This is Mercury sharpened into discernment, shaped into clarity. It does not race to speak, it listens. It observes, it sorts. Every word becomes a seed, every silence a scalpel. And through this sharpened lens, Virgo survives what others cannot face, the noise within. Because when Virgo falls, they do not thrash, they do not distract, they go inward. Mercury pulls them there, into the labyrinth of thought, into the halls of memory, into the subtle terrain of inner dialogue. And it is here in the silence that Virgo is not destroyed, but rebuilt. They trace every broken thought like a surgeon. They ask, what was missed? What was misaligned? What did I not see the first time? These questions are not signs of weakness. They are tools of rebirth. Virgo's resilience is mental before it is physical. It is cognitive alchemy. While others escape into impulse, Virgo retreats into discernment. They dissect their own downfall, not to obsess, but to extract meaning. This is their sacred function. Every breakdown becomes a blueprint, every mistake a lesson in disguise. Mercury teaches Virgo that there is a map behind the madness, and they will find it quietly, patiently, obsessively, until the confusion crystallizes into insight. This is not self-help. This is sacred repair. Virgo is ruled by the god of messages, but they are not here to deliver noise. They are here to translate chaos into coherence. And when their own lives fall into fragments, they instinctively begin decoding. They journal, they think, they pray. They design a better system, a better schedule, a better boundary. They sift through every thought, until what remains is not pain but principle. Even the most wounded Virgo will reach for the lesson. That is their instinct. But do not mistake their silence for surrender. Virgo's quiet is tactical. They are strategizing even in sorrow. While others explode, Virgo rewrites. They recalculate the equation of their lives with the same grace they bring to a spreadsheet or a sentence. Their Mercury mind is always finding the most elegant way to realign what has gone wrong, not just on the outside, but within. And that is why they come back stronger, because Mercury arms them not with armor, but with insight. They know how to rewire thought. They know how to examine, correct, and evolve. Virgo doesn't bounce back through denial. They come back through understanding. This is their superpower. They know why they fell. And once they know, they never fall the same way twice. In a world that rewards reaction, Virgo refines response. They don't just recover, they upgrade. And in their quiet return, there is a wisdom more powerful than rage, more lasting than vengeance, a clear centered resolve that cuts through the noise and makes sense of the storm. Virgo is earth, but not the fertile indulgence of Taurus or the mountain ambition of Capricorn. Virgo is the sacred soil after the fire, the earth that purifies, sifts, separates wheat from chaff. This is not comfort, this is consecration. In Virgo, the earth element becomes an alchemist. Not content to simply hold or build, Virgo refines. They take what is raw and cleanse it. They take what is scattered and sort it. They take what is broken and piece by piece make it whole again. This is not mere grounding. This is spiritual composting. Nothing is wasted. Everything is transformed. And so, Virgo survives by reworking the very substance of their suffering. They come back stronger because they don't discard the broken parts. They repurpose them. The pain becomes instruction. The failure becomes formula. The betrayal becomes boundary. They know the soil is not clean because it is untouched. It is clean because it has been worked, turned aerated, and made fertile again. Virgo is not afraid to get their hands in the dirt. It's where they perform their most sacred miracles. Their resilience lives in their rituals. They create structure out of chaos, not because they fear disorder, but because they understand it. They can feel the way small habits shape entire futures, the way a single change in rhythm can realign a life. The rest of the zodiac may mock their routines, the planning, the checklists, the meal prepping, the thousand tiny adjustments. But these are not mere habits. These are healing codes. Every repeated act is a vote for a better future. And Virgo never stops voting. When life collapses, they turn to the tangible, one drawer at a time, one email, one action, one corrected detail. And in these small acts, they reassemble themselves. This is how the earth element expresses through Virgo, not as stubbornness, but as sacred stewardship. They tend not just to the garden, but to the entire system, the roots, the nutrients, the compost pile. They watch the cycles. They prune what no longer serves. They trust in slow growth, in invisible progress. They are not chasing transformation through spectacle. They are achieving it through integrity. And because they live so close to the soil of truth, Virgo knows what must die and what must be reborn. They do not cling to illusions. They are not seduced by fantasy. When they are hurt, they analyze. When they are wrong, they adjust. And when they are lost, they build a new map. Brick by brick, day by day, they re-enter the world not by magic, but by mastery. This is not weakness. This is the strength of the sacred builder, the healer, the craftsperson of the soul. You will not always see their return coming. There will be no lightning bolt, no sudden reveal. But one day you will look again, and the Virgo you thought was buried will be standing taller, clearer, with new boundaries, a sharper mind, and the softest, fiercest light in their eyes. Because they went to the underworld and cleaned it. In the shadows of Virgo lives the critic, that sharp internal voice that never sleeps. It notices the flaw in the masterpiece, the missed word, in the sentence, the imperfect tone in the apology. This voice can become a tyrant, a relentless grinding whisper that nothing is ever good enough, not others, not the world, not even the self. When Virgo falls into this shadow, the desire to serve becomes control, the longing to heal becomes hypervigilance, and love becomes conditional. But here is the paradox: the same force that wounds Virgo is the one that saves them, because within the critic lives the muse. Virgo's ability to critique is not meant to destroy, it is meant to illuminate. And once they realize that perfection is not the goal, but presence, the critic transforms. The same discerning gaze that once turned inward with shame now turns outward with clarity. Virgo becomes the master editor, the truth teller, the visionary, who sees what could be not from ego, but from devotion to beauty, honesty, and integrity. Virgo is here to shape excellence, not because they must, but because they can. This is why they come back stronger, because even their shadows hold tools. Their self-doubt, when transmuted, becomes discernment. Their judgment, when softened by compassion, becomes wisdom. They learn to balance precision with grace, structure with softness, and when they do, something extraordinary happens. They begin to inspire. No longer a servant of perfection, Virgo becomes an artist of potential. Think of the great sculptors who chisel away at blocks of marble to reveal the form within. That is Virgo energy at its highest: patient, visionary, devoted not to appearances, but to essence. They do not settle for half-truths or hollow promises. They dig, question, refine, and in that tireless devotion to improvement, they elevate not just themselves, but everyone around them. But the journey from critic to muse is not easy. It requires Virgo to face their own impossible standards, to look at their inner tally of shortcomings, and say, "I am still worthy." It requires them to stop proving and start creating, to realize that they don't need to fix the world to deserve rest, that they don't need to be flawless to be loved. And when they cross that threshold, they become radiant, not in an obvious way, but in a way that transforms spaces simply by being in them. Because they no longer operate from fear, they operate from vision. This is the rebirth of Virgo, not as the anxious analyst, but as the sacred artisan, the writer who labors over truth, the nurse who perfects a healing touch, the teacher who edits your essay at midnight because she sees your potential more clearly than you do. Virgo becomes the muse of mastery, the quiet genius behind the scenes, the one who made it all work while others were lost in chaos. So if you see Virgo pulling away, growing quiet, withdrawing, don't assume defeat, assume refinement, assume evolution. Assume that when they return, they will bring not just themselves, but a version of truth you didn't know you needed. Because Virgo's strength is not just in rebuilding themselves, it's in revealing what the world could become if only it dared to be as honest. Virgo always comes back stronger because they carry a sacred memory, a memory of wholeness before the world broke. Even in collapse, they remember this is not the end. Not because they are invincible, but because they are devoted to repair, to coming back, to making things right. They don't just survive, they transform. They don't return to who they were. They return better, wiser, sharper, more honest. When life shatters, Virgo doesn't sweep it under the rug. They examine every piece, sort it, learn from it, and build again with intention. This is not recovery, this is evolution. Their sole instinct is not to escape the pain, but to refine it, to integrate it into something real, something useful. Every failure becomes fuel, every wound a blueprint. They rise not in spite of their suffering, but because they understand it. You see this in quiet masters of healing, in Maya Angelou's poetry, Born of Pain, in the caretakers, the editors, the healers. They don't need applause, just alignment. Virgo comes back stronger because they remember what others forget, that wholeness isn't found. It's built, act by act, day by day, breath by breath. They rise not to be seen. They rise to restore the sacred. And if even a fragment of Virgo lives in you, you too will come back, not just stronger, but clearer.